But if we should not privatize the secondary market, what should be done? We believe that the GSE should be converted into public purpose entities that are accountable to Congress but are not a department of the government, such as the Federal Housing Administration. The agency would provide liquidity for 30-year mortgages that are explicitly guaranteed or priced adequately for reserves. The agency would provide liquidity for multifamily financing. The agency would act as a provider of underwriting standards and technology for the benefit of the whole market. It would balance private influence by providing choice on the secondary market. As an example, the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency is not a government department. It's independent, yet it serves a public purpose of financing affordable housing and rental. While appointed by the governor and state legislature, the board is independent, self-supporting, and operates without appropriations. Likewise, the GSEs can serve the public purpose in the secondary market for rental and homeownership financing.
Mr. Skillern, you talk about something modeled more or less on the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, that is a public purpose entity, and you note in your written testimony that you get rid of the conflicting private profit motive, which may have driven some of the practices in the GSEs that came back to haunt us. Does the idea of a lender co-op perhaps fit into that, or is this kind of a completely different structure?
I think it would be a different structure. In addition to my concern about access to capital for small financial institutions, I also have it for low to moderate income households, communities of color, and that the pricing of that risk and how we define the boundaries can be very narrow or more expansive as long as they're more responsible and sustainable. So I also think that the Housing Finance Agency model would be a smaller role to play. If you look at the total of what's really happening in North Carolina, it fits a particular range where there's an appropriate role for government to help facilitate home ownership and rental housing. So we really embrace this concept of both private and public participation, but that public has to be intentional. And I guess my concern about the cooperative model is that that's not intentional enough to assure us that we're going to have enough access to a range of communities across the country.
Do you see the government standing behind such a public purpose entity, such an independent nonprofit, if you will, that's playing this secondary market role?
Yes, sir, I do. I believe that while as much as we want to put taxpayer money behind private money, that we want to assign risk to the decision makers so that we're not putting taxpayers to ensure someone else's moral hazard, the reality is that our government and our taxpayers stand behind our society as far as how the risk that we take and our cost. So there's a role for that, and I think we should be upfront about it, but also then be clear about defining what those limits are. And I think that this finance agency model allows us to define that more clearly to say who pays once private dollars are taken.
Thank you.